Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the last 7 days. I'm Brian Spellman.
And I'm Greg Stewart. Glad to be joining you on the intro today.
You know, we're almost halfway through January, and already none of my New Year's resolutions are broken. It's because I didn't make any, but it's a good track record.
Great.
We're going to spend the next few minutes talking about the news over the last week or so and how it impacts our world of PLM, CAD, MES, MOM, MFG, and all the other three-letter acronyms that I probably left out there.
First, we'll look at aerospace, automotive, manufacturing, and high tech. Coming up, the International Space Race is heating up again.
Boeing had a rough week.
Hertz is selling Tesla.
Google has more layoffs.
And a robot makes coffee.
And we'll be out of batteries sooner than you think.
Ready, set, go.
All right, guys. So Boeing has a startup called Orion Space. Then on Thursday, they launched the most powerful rocket developed by the Chinese private sector into space. Now, if you had told me back in 2020 that a company was founding, let's say it was called Gravity One, and it was going to be a private company in China that was going to launch a rocket into space, I'm not sure I would have believed you. But this just happened. They said they were going to do it by the second half of 2023. And just in this very beginning of 2024, they did it. They launched a rocket into space that can send a payload of up to 6,500 kilograms into low Earth orbit. Wow. So it's the most powerful launch vehicle that's yet been developed by the Chinese private sector. They're saying it can place 30 satellites in orbit into a single launch, and that they can typically organize a launch in under a week, but that they claim they can also organize one in just under 24 hours.
Yeah, that's interesting to me, right? I mean, I always thought it took weeks or even months to prepare for a launch. 24 hours feels a little like Musk saying they're going to deliver 2 million Cybertrucks next year. We'll see. I don't know. I wonder how many other countries are going to be sending rockets into space.
Well, actually, Mexico is one, guys. This looks like Mexico is sending to the moon 5 microbots. So let me elaborate. A lunar lander called Peregrine, developed by Astrobotic Technology, suffered a critical fuel leak shortly after launch. So this happened the last week, unfortunately. But this Peregrine was carrying about 20 NASA and commercial payloads. including the 5 microboats developed by Mexican scientists and students for lunar surface experiments. So Mexico is in the space.
Wow. So we've got a lot of space. Did you guys know when you're looking at this, when you're looking to make a launch into space, and you just mentioned, Greg, how this sounds a little Musk with the whole claim of let's just do this, right? But there's a lot that goes into this other than just pure force and throwing a lot of money at it. There's a lot of planning, a lot of, well, let's just, the product life cycle plays a huge impact in all of this. And the planning aspect of just sending stuff to the moon or to space is fascinating.
Yeah.
And right now, we just talked about how we have China's private companies have sent a rocket into space. Mexico is planning on sending microbots to the moon, and America is having pieces fly off of airplanes. Which brings us to the fact that y'all may have noticed that Greg introduced the show today and Andrew wasn't here. However, he has made sure to broadcast some news for us. So let's just see what he has here.
Thanks, Brian. Hi, Greg. Sorry can't be with you live on the show, but I had to highlight the big A&D news this week. Yeah, that's the recent and very alarming incident, part of a Boeing 737 MAX 9 plane detached mid-flight, prompting a swift response from David Calhoun, the CEO. This incident, coupled with Boeing's previous slow response, has raised concerns about the company's safety protocols. So I wanted to delve into the details and explore how the solutions we implement every day, namely PLM and MRO, prevent such occurrences. So basically, last week, a 737 MAX 9 experienced a mid-flight failure leading to a pledge from Boeing CEO David Calhoun for complete transparency. This marks a notable contrast to the company's criticized response to previous crashes before. But before this incident, Boeing was on track for a turnaround year in 2023 with a 70% increase in annual net orders. US regulators are now investigating whether a flyaway fuselage panel was properly bolted down. They've discounted negligence by the flight operator Alaska Airlines, but the FAA has grounded all 737 MAX 9s in the US following the discovery of loose hardware during inspections by major US airlines, United and Alaska. So hold that thought for a moment and listen to this. Another incident involving a Boeing jetliner with an in-flight blowout over Oregon was revealed that a warning light indicating a potential pressurization problem had appeared on 3 different flights. Alaska Airlines wisely restricted the aircraft from long flights over water as a precautionary measure. So, are you going to crash on land?
Yeah, this is interesting, right? I mean, obviously, building and maintaining airplanes is not a cheap or quick or easy venture, right? But little bit of a history lesson back in 2020 when Airbus was coming out with its new A320neo, which it was doing pretty well with. Boeing needed to do something to stay competitive and could either build a new airplane or revamp and update an already existing model. Obviously, the 787 Dreamliner was already delayed and having a ton of technical issues. And for a new design, pilots are going to have to go through training, and there's going to be a long ramp up time. Pun intended. But then American Airlines, a longtime Boeing customer since the 2000s, came out and said that they were considering the new Airbus model. Boeing knew they needed to act quickly or risk losing one of their largest customers. Unfortunately, it sounds like they did end up losing them in 2011. But enter the 737 MAX airliner, which was based on a model of theirs from the 1960s, but also updated to meet new efficiency and supposed safety standards.
That's a good history, I think. If Andrew could respond live, he would tell you that's fantastic. Thank you for elaborating on the brief history that I gave. And then he would continue to say,
anyways, so it sounds like this isn't isolated. This situation prompts us to consider how advanced PLM and MRO solutions could play a crucial role in averting such crisis. In both cases, effective management of the aircraft's life cycle and maintenance procedures could have made a significant difference. 1. PLM solutions ensure meticulous documentation of assembly processes, while MRO systems with real-time monitoring capabilities could have identified recurring issues like warning lights, enabling timely intervention on before critical failures. Secondly, predictive maintenance. Features in MRO solutions can analyze historical data, predicting potential failures and facilitating proactive maintenance, preventing incidents like the recent in-flight blowout. So in conclusion, the aviation industry must embrace advanced technologies like PLM and MRO to ensure safety and reliability. So next up for me, I'm heading to Miami next week. And guess who I'm flying with? Yep, United. And guess what I'm taking 2 hops on 2 737s. Hopefully not MAX 9s because I think they're grounded anyway, so no delays. I think I'm on the 700 and an 800. Back to you guys. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Oh, man. Well, Andrew, if you're watching, thanks for those updates and safe travels on the 737s. I know it's been a rough week for Boeing, as you mentioned, as Andrew mentioned, but let alone a couple years, right, with the 737 MAX. I mean, if we recall, there have been 2 notable crashes that left hundreds dead. And so it's interesting for sure. I mean, as we know, the entirety of the process hasn't gone well. Andrew clarified that, both of the crashes and the problems that could have been so much more this week. But the decisions that have been made by Boeing, I've got to wonder how much of the decisions made was just pressure from management or shareholders that led to quick decisions that ultimately resulted in poor quality management of the PLM process. I'm at least hopeful that Boeing is starting to take some responsibility, right? During the 2 crashes, they initially had deflected blame onto users, onto the pilots for not following the right procedures. But it sounds like the CEO is taking a bit of a different tone this time. Andrew mentioned a couple quotes, but one that I picked up on was at an all hands meeting yesterday. He said, "I've got kids, I've got grandkids, and so do you. This stuff matters. Every detail matters." So let's hope Boeing is taking the when one door closes, another opens philosophy.
Well, when one door closes, another opens is a great philosophy, as long as that other door is not opening while you're in flight.
Literally. Got it.
But when we talk about accidents and crashes and everything, I think most of us don't necessarily think of planes first. We usually think of cars. Toyota has a game changer. Toyota has said they're going to roll out solid state battery EVs globally just in the next couple of years. Now, solid state batteries charge faster, they last longer, and they are promising to dramatically improve the driving range of electric vehicles, handle that range anxiety that we all have. Toyota is saying that this is a vehicle that's going to be able to charge in 10 minutes with a range of 750 miles and with a really long life expectancy for the battery, which is just fascinating to hear. And I mean, I want a car that can recharge that fast.
Yeah. It's interesting. I sit back and go, man, we had an issue with Apple a couple years ago that was making the batteries run out faster or run down faster. And so it's an interesting take on this. I wonder how it's going to impact consumer prices, right? Because batteries are lasting longer, less replacement of batteries. We know that's the expensive part of the car, but I'll be first in line for an EV with a 10-minute charge time and a 750-mile range. Most gas stops take that long anyways, especially if you're traveling with 2 kids and a dog. So those will turn into more, I've got to go to the bathroom, bio break stops.
I just remembered, I'm going to date myself here, but when I was a kid, I had a remote control car and you could drive those around, and they had limited battery life, so it would last like 20 minutes. But then you would have to recharge them and wait like 2 hours for your little tiny. I can't imagine you could take your real car and have it recharged. This is where we are in the future, guys. We're in the future.
Yeah, and I'm gonna make a change right here, guys, because I'm gonna talk about Cummins. So looks like Cummins will recall 600,000 Ram trucks as part of settlement with federal and California authorities. Cummins has to remedy environmental damage caused by illegal software that let it bypass diesel emission tests. So for over a decade, hundreds of thousands of Ram heavy-duty pickup trucks manufactured by Stellantis had Cummins diesel engines equipped with software that limited nitrogen oxide pollution during emission tests, but allowed higher pollution during normal operations, guys.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it sounds like Cummins isn't taking or acknowledging responsibility that it was intentional, right? But this is one of the higher level ethical responsibility issues I've seen in quite a while, or at least one of the largest ones.
Did I hear Joseph correctly say that there was basically software that said we're going to report stuff that isn't true while letting other stuff happen? Is that okay?
Yeah. I wonder how this is going to impact Cummins' relationship with their their purchasers. But interesting. In other news, Tesla is raising the pay for U.S. factory workers. They told production workers in the U.S. earlier this week that they will get a pay hike. They didn't specify how much or the magnitude of that hike, though. Obviously, I think this is coming on the back of the UAW strikes that we heard of this year, right?
Wait. You just dove in and mentioned the UAW strike, and Andrew's not here to give his opinion on that?
Yeah, I know I told him that I would never mention it again, but I'm almost sorry that he's not here to hear me make this comment. But I'm sure a lot of this is being driven by that, right? And competitors raising their factory worker pay, so they want to stay competitive. Additionally, I know Elon came out and said they're trying to avoid becoming unionized. And if they do become unionized, it's their own fault. But it does sound like the UAW is targeting them. And based on reports we've been seeing and the success that the UAW has been having, I wouldn't be surprised if enough comes out to make that nightmare a reality for them. So you remember last week when we talked about the worker that was assaulted by a robot at Tesla? There's certainly some things happening. It'll be interesting.
There's a little bit happening. And what's interesting when you just brought up Tesla here is that we've all rented cars from various places, let's say including one called Hertz. Hertz has just announced that they are going to sell 20,000 electric vehicles in their fleet, replacing them for gas-powered vehicles. Now, just as a reminder, Hertz had previously planned and ordered 100,000 Teslas by the end of 2022. They followed that with a decision to buy 65,000 units over the next 5 years from Polestar, and they had set a target for having 25% of their fleet electric by the end of 2024. So that was the plan. But just at the beginning of this year, Hertz has said they are now going to sell off 20,000 EVs due to this higher expenses related to collision and damage. So I guess people crashing these cars and having to get them repaired is causing more expenses than planned. And so now if you go to Hertz website, you can find these EVs on sale, apparently including BMW's i3, Chevrolet's Bolt, and Tesla's Model 3 and Model Y SUVs. So it's just interesting to me that the reason is the repair cost.
Yeah. I mean, you'd think insurance would cover those additional costs, right?
You would think so. Like I'm maybe well, it is a new year, so maybe they said, hey, these are your new rates, and they're higher because of EVs, which I think brings into question, this whole news show here is about product lifecycle management related news, which isn't just the development of the product. It's the life of the product, the maintenance of the product, the repair of the product, and all that has to be taken into consideration. And I'm wondering, with a lot of these recent news items, how much has the EV manufacturing idea really taken all of that into consideration?
Yeah.
And I don't know.
And you know what, guys? Talking, about insurance cost, what happened with the product life cycle management? Because let's talk a little bit more about the Chinese cars. We have those sexy models, right? With technology, with good price, good market, good marketing, with everything, right? But it's the introduction of a new product. Now, what is happening with the after sale process? Because in Mexico, we're having a lot of Chinese manufacturers with cars, right? But once you buy a car and you have a disaster, a crash, or something, it's really complex to have spare parts. Because looks like the agencies and the sellers right here, they don't have enough stock, to supply the spare parts for crashes, for issues with the screens, with the different systems that the cars have. And it's really complex, guys. You must think about it once you are putting a new product in the market.
Yeah. all these changes of products and industry changes, we hear it all the time. We're just in a transition phase, company
Yeah.
wide, industry wide.
Speaking of transitions,
Transitions indeed. Google said on Wednesday that it is laying off hundreds of employees across multiple teams, with Fitbit co-founders definitely leaving the company as well, as the tech giant continues to push costs. But they didn't specify the exact number of roles being impacted. How many people are part of the teams that are being impacted are not extremely clear, but we've seen a lot of this trend in the tech industry, right? Last year, this year, unfortunately, I can't tell if it's the industry starting to mature or if it's just kind of a short phase as companies are pivoting in strategy. So transitioning, right? Though Google did let go of 12,000 people last year. So I'm hoping we're nearing the end of it for their sake, but it does sound like it's part of a larger reorganization.
oh, okay. You just said that word reorganization. You are an HR guy. I've got to ask, does reorganization really mean reorganization, or is it like kind of HR code for bad news? And
Yeah.
if they are reorganizing, what are they reorganizing here?
Yeah, valid question. I would probably say 75, 80% of the time, it's probably just a red flag of bad news. But it does sound like Google is changing their focus to be a bit more on generative AI technology rather than the older technologies like Pixel and Nest and Fitbit, which are still cool, but kind of they're chasing the next big transformative product, which makes a lot of sense. So I certainly see this now. Had they had a plan set up to reskill all of their current workers, because I'm sure they hired them for more than just their skills, or at least I hope they did. That they're kind of reskilling that, but it makes a lot of sense from my perspective.
Yeah, I'm with you, Greg. I think I'm really excited to know more about AI. You know, guys, how passionate I'm about it. But I think also that you need or keep updated, with new knowledge,
Yeah.
keep updated with what is happening with AI and what is the opportunity to improve or how I'm gonna be more valuable for the enterprise or for my job. Of course, it's a painful cut because that represents families
Yeah.
and different things. And well, I think it's a painful cut. But yeah.
Yeah, completely agreed. It's definitely a pivotal time in the industry, and pivotal times can be as painful as they can be productive, but hoping we get through it quicker. Yeah.
With pivotal times, with AI, with everything happening, another really interesting thing this week is that there's an AI company called Figure who just taught a robot how to make coffee from a Keurig machine. Now, that sounds simple. We know that to make coffee in a Keurig machine is pretty easy. Any of us can do it. We've probably got, it's not a complicated thing to do. But this humanoid robot learned by watching a human do this. So it watched a human make the coffee and then it made the coffee. Just watched and acquired the skills. Now, it didn't just look once and do it. It did take 10 hours of watching before it acquired the skill to figure out how to do it. But that's pretty, I'm going to say, impressive that you can just watch and learn.
10 hours isn't a long time in the life of things. Brian,
Yeah.
I'd love to get your thoughts on how does this fit into, I guess, our warehouses, our manufacturing plants as we're creating things. Are we going to one day, we've got a bunch of line workers that are doing things to an automobile, to an airplane, but are we going to be able to set robots up and say, okay, watch this worker for a day or two, which seems very short, and make sure that you know what to do in the case of something? Is that
Yeah.
possible? Are we
I mean,
seeing that
that's
in
a
the
lot.
future?
It's a lot faster learning than, of course, it would take to train a human how to, say, work an assembly line, right? If a robot can watch it and learn it, boom. Yeah, that brings up the questions of replacing humans. Is that good or bad, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, there's also the safety issues, like this whole thing happened with the humanoid robot at Tesla.
Yeah.
So this is both fascinating, revolutionary, scary, all at the same time. But I think that what you're talking about here is, can a robot watch and learn how to do stuff we do faster, maybe better? And does that happen just for physical activities, or can that happen for processes and planning and all the other stuff that we have to deal with? And I think we are moving towards the future where all that is very much going to be what we see probably as an everyday thing. Like it's sci-fi times are closer than we think.
It's true. I was just talking to my dad over Christmas break about the eventual robotic assistant that we would have in the house to do things just like this, or, replace the brakes on my car or replace the oil. There's a number of different things. As long as, I don't wake up and the robot's staring at me from the foot of my bed, I won't find it too scary, but who knows?
So you are saying you want a humanoid robot and not a dogonoid robot that's just going to be sitting there staring at you when you wake up.
Correct. The first thing that I think any robot should learn is healthy boundaries. So
you heard it right here from HR expert Greg. Robots learn healthy boundaries.
That's right.
Yeah, I think we are really close to have that kind of technology, guys. I think our limitation right now is software programming, things like that we can't put in the AI. And also, it could be the negotiation between different companies to integrate the hardware or devices needed for these kind of big robots, humanoids, dogs, whatever, So I think that is a limitation because, for example, I have a new article for you guys, and different manufacturers are innovating. Here is the case of Teledyne. Teledyne innovates early fire detection systems through a strategic thermal bi-player collaboration. So let me talk more about it. And looks like Teledyne is creating hardware and new devices, cameras for buildings, for different sites, to try and detect where we're gonna have fire and try to put a corrective action or something, So that is my point of view. We are creating new devices that we can integrate in different things. Yeah.
So what I believe I just heard you say is that the early fire detection is the concept here of being able to detect fires, of course, earlier than we normally, like before they're ablaze and are happening, before the smoke is there, the smoke detector picks it up. So using thermal imaging and stuff, and maybe some sort of predictive AI, et cetera, to figure out how to see that a fire is likely to happen, which I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie called Minority Report. But the whole idea of that one was using AI to predict when people were going to commit crimes and then to punish them or arrest them before they did so. So I think it's really cool to use this kind of technology to prevent fires ahead of time. But there's that fine line, as you say, I'm kind of scared of AI and robots. You guys aren't yet, but we'll get there. But it is where we take this technology is going to change the future. But what's really interesting about what you've also said here, Joseph, is that I think, often think of, like our product lifecycle process as the creation of something, just the development of it, and not the use of it or what happens afterwards. So this is really diving into the use of a product for its use of detecting fires, and then what happens after it's deployed in the consumer's hands, which is a huge thing you've got to consider. Another huge thing we've got to consider is, all right, so we know that all of this technology is powered by lithium use in batteries, right? And they're everywhere, from our cell phones to our cars to everything that recharges, almost everything that recharges. So do you guys know, we always hear that lithium is a rare earth resource. When are we going to actually have a shortage of this rare resource? Any guesses?
I don't know that I've even given it any thought. I just thought we would always have lithium, which a little dumb on my part, but
the International Energy Agency has said that we could face the shortage of lithium as soon as 2025. Now,
so next year.
Yeah,
Okay.
2025 sounds like the future still, but no, we're in 2024. That's a year away. They're also saying that the demand for lithium-ion batteries is going to increase by tenfold by 2030. So we've got more and more uses for all these things, more needs for it. We've got manufacturers building up battery plants to keep up. We've got, well, then the idea that just extracting lithium is, can take a lot of time, a lot of money, and can be terrible for the environment with all the water, the energy use, and the scars on the landscape, the toxic waste. So lithium is something we're all using. It's taking over everything that we need to have rechargeable batteries for, and it's going to run out. So how do we fix this? What's going to happen? Do we just stop having rechargeables? Do we stop our usage? What do we do? Yeah. Well, one thing that scientists have done is to take a look at AI, take a look at supercomputers, put these things together and say, solve the problem. So the Microsoft researchers had partnered with a group called the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, which is part of the U.S. Department of Energy. They have partnered together and they took AI supercomputers, took 32 million potential inorganic materials, and in less than a week, narrowed them down to 18 candidates. Then they took those and in less than 9 months made a working prototype that could actually use 70% less lithium, and they powered a light bulb with this. So small steps, but it's getting there. Now, what's fascinating here is that this idea of taking 32 million options would have taken decades in traditional lab research methods. It took less than a week.
Yeah.
So the executive vice president of Microsoft, Jason Zander, just said this week to BBC that their mission was to compress 250 years of scientific discovery into the next 25.
That's, I'm glad to hear that the good that AI is doing. But upon learning about how powerful, and I think that's what this show's been about, is how powerful AI truly is. I'm starting to see the light on how bad it could be as well in the long run.
I did it. I converted Greg to the scared side of AI.
I got to go watch The Terminator now.
Yeah, guys, actually it probably sounds scary, but I think it's a way to rethink everything and think out of the box, because if you go to, could be ChatGPT or other AI and ask for solutions, looks like we're gonna keep following the same trend, and that is how to make a more effective or consumption in resources. So, for example, we did it with gas engines and cars. We don't put a bigger tank to have more kilometers or miles to record. Well, actually, the thing that we did is make more smarter engines or different systems. Looks like we're gonna have the same thing with EVs and e-driveways. So the same principle that we have with the iPhone, to recharge our battery, you don't need to put a bigger battery. You just need to put new systems in the cities, could be, to keep recharging while you are driving your car. And that's going to be better to reduce the consumption of lithium, considering that we have a lack in that resource, right? And probably if you're going to go in the weekend for a road or something, you can use your car with gas, oil, or something, But yeah, I think I'm thinking about rethink the things, but also to keep this philosophy of effectiveness in consumption of resources.
Yeah.
Great.
I was gonna say, if there's one thing that humans are, Joseph, I think you're 100% accurate there. You hit the nail on the head. We're adaptable, and we will adapt. Scares me that lithium is running out, but we'll get there.
One of the things that you just mentioned about how we're adaptable, we all have grandparents and great grandparents that we've talked to stories about of what the world used to be like, and how, if I told my great grandfather that we would be living in a world that we had a cell phone with all of, this information and access on it, it sounds like magic, like how could you have this? All these countries sending stuff to space almost on a, it seems like a daily basis, more stuff getting launched up, just everything that's happening. It seems like we're living in science fiction, and the world that we know that technology increases exponentially, right? So the world that we're living in now that seems like magic to our ancestors, what is going to happen to our kids, our grandkids, like what's the world going to look like? And
Yeah.
it's going to be sci-fi. It's going to be the future, this unbelievable future. And we all know that this is brought to us by the ways of advances in technology. So we are the show, The Last 7 Days, who apparently today are just reminding you all that while all of this is brought to you by advances in technology, it's also brought to you by advances in the way we handle that technology, the way we handle manufacturing, the way we handle the entire business of the life cycle of a product. So advances in PLM have really made all of this possible, which I think we don't think about very often, but it's pretty true. So with
You're
that,
right.
everybody, thanks for joining us for the last 7 days, and we'll see you all in the next 7 days. That's a week away. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.